Well, today on our Making Doll Food Polymer Clay 101, we're going to talk about what are the basic tools you need to get started playing with polymer clay. Stay tuned and see what all of these are and what they're used for. Alright, so the first item we're going to talk about as far as basic tools for working with your polymer clay to make your doll foods is a work surface. This is my favorite type of work surface. This is a ceramic floor tile. They're inexpensive. You get them at any home improvement store like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever is the local store for you. You want to find one that's smooth. It doesn't need to be shiny, but a smooth surface, one that doesn't have texture to it. I do like my shiny ones, but I can't use them when I film because they reflect too much. I try to stick with gray or beige colored tiles because I get a better idea of what my clay colors are like. Now these are fairly inexpensive. I like to use the 12-inch by 12-inch size. Any smaller than that and I feel really cramped. Any bigger than that and it takes up a lot of space on my table. You'll notice this one has got stains on it. I've been using the same tile for years and years and years. I do clean them on a regular basis. I clean them between every project. And not only do I use these for polymer clay, I use them for almost all my general crafting anymore because they're so easy to clean. So to clean them up, I recommend you pick up a paint scraper. That way you can let any paint or glue you use dry on them and just scrape it off. Works really well. And then wipe them down with a wet wipe and let them dry before you work with anything else on there. Now, what other surfaces could you use? You could work on a piece of parchment paper, but it's going to move around and it's going to wrinkle and it's going to be really hard to work on. Something I don't recommend working on is your wooden kitchen or dining room table or any other wooden surface because raw polymer clay will make spots in the wood and it'll ruin the wood surface. Stay away from plastic surfaces because raw polymer clay again will eat into plastic before it's been baked. So really go to the home improvement store and buy an inexpensive tile. They come on sale. You don't need to have a special, fancy one. Get whatever's on sale that's got a smooth surface. So that's our first thing. After we have a place to work, we need to be able to roll our clay out because for a lot of things, we roll the clay out into a sheet. This is my incredibly dirty, I thought I cleaned this before I put it away last time. No. This is my clay roller. This is an acrylic rod made specifically for working with polymer clay. This is one of the things I use a lot, but you don't have to go out and buy one of these. You can use a glass jar. I like this kind of jar. This is what capers come in. You buy them by the olives and the pickles. I love this size jar, and this has the advantage. You've got a storage for some of your texturing tools, which we're going to talk about in a week or so. This works just as well as this. If you're using a different kind of glass jar, just be sure it's completely straight and get any label off and that there's no design in it. I know a lot of people use a wooden dowel. I don't like wooden dowels because they leave texture, but that's up to you. But these are the two I think the best for beginners. I also use a pasta machine that's dedicated to my clay, but that's a whole nother video. Now we need something to cut our clay with. This is a clay blade. This is only one of many styles. Clay blades, some of them have holes. This one has holes because it came with a handle, which I thought was a really cool idea, and I found that I hated the handle. I like this one because it's very flexible. I can use it to cut straight, I can use it to cut curves. But you need just a basic straight clay blade. And this I recommend being the first real clay tool you buy. Be very careful of these. They are very, very sharp, and replace it when it is no longer sharp. But they're great because you can cut through any depth of clay. There's no ridge on the top to stop your blade. Some people use a razor blade, but I like the length of this. I can cut a wide piece of clay and I can cut any depth. And I don't recommend using a craft knife or something like that because they just don't work as well. These are not that expensive and they're really, really useful. And they're, like I said, probably the first tool I recommend you run out and buy. You need something to bake your clay on. Now, some people bake right on their ceramic tile, and I do sometimes. I usually have some 6 by 6 inch ceramic tiles specifically to bake on. My most common baking surface are these just plain cheap paper plates. Your oven is a low enough temperature. This is safe. You're not getting, clay has actually a lower point where it will burn than the paper does. So these can sit right in your oven and you can bake your clay, and they're inexpensive. You can use them 2 or 3 times if you want to, but they're cheap and they don't leave a shiny surface. If you bake on a hard surface like a tile, your clay will have a shiny bottom. If you bake on here, it won't. The other thing that I think you really need to start out working with clay is some wet wipes. Try to get the ones that do not contain the label alcohol free, because having a little bit of alcohol in there will help to get that clay off your fingers, off your tools. When I'm done, in fact, I don't know how I missed doing this before. You can wipe all of your tools down, which is usually the last thing I do before I put my tools away. I wipe everything down with my wet wipe, and then I throw the wet wipe away. But those are the tools that you need to get started with polymer clay, at least in my opinion. Those are your basic tools. Something to work on, something to roll your clay out with, something to cut it with, something to bake it with, and something to clean up with. It's that easy. Next time, I think what we'll talk about is the texturing tools, because that's where we get some really fun stuff going. So I hope this was helpful. Be sure and check the blog post, and be sure and come back next week. If you haven't subscribed, I really encourage you to do that so you can keep up with this series. And find my group on Facebook. The link is always in the description, and that's the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.